Alright. Upcoming changes to aircraft carriers and submarines. Captains, we hope that you're enjoying our New Year update. As we're wrapping up the year 2023, we want to give you a glimpse of some exciting changes that aim to address some significant aircraft carrier and submarine pain points you have provided feedback on. Okay, I'm glad that they're acknowledging them, because for a long time they've been ignoring them. Many of these issues have been brought for years and years and years. I saw their stream where they tried to justify this because the last year was so rough, which is true, but these are issues that have been around for 4 or 5 years, so there's no excuse why they haven't addressed these 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even 4 years ago when people brought them up. But I'm glad they're being acknowledged. I'm glad they're being acknowledged, but I think it's disingenuous to indicate that the reason why they haven't changed it earlier is because last year was rough. It's very, very old issues. Okay, we're sharing the current concept for these changes. We don't have exact details just yet, and many things could change. That being said, we have a prototype that we are enthusiastic about, and we have outlined our ideas below. Okay. Like, the only reason why they're doing it now is because the player numbers have been... Until this, they were perfectly fine ignoring. Yeah, they mentioned relocating being a delaying factor. Yeah, it's all bullshit. These have been issues since 2018, 2019. Like, it's all an excuse. Let's dive in. Aircraft carrier changes. We have been hard at work to find a solution for the following problems. Aircraft carrier plane spotting has too much impact. Minimap spotting would solve that. Anti-aircraft mechanics and consumables don't feel impactful enough. A rollback would solve that. Rebalancing spotting and anti-aircraft mechanics while ensuring that aircraft carriers remain viable in battle. Once again, a rollback to the AA we had when the CV rework first went through would be a good idea. Good way of solving this. In fact, nerfing old AA was caused many of the issues. We've tested many different approaches in the past to deal with these problems, none of the ones the community have suggested. And while some came close to meeting our requirements, they ultimately fell short of our expectations. However, we learned many lessons, and many of the previously tested concepts contributed to our current prototype, which is something that we confidently feel will address these problems and lead to big improvements in the overall game experience. Okay, now I just want to say, this is something they've said regarding every rework so far, so we'll see. They're running their concept, not a concept the players recommended, not a concept based on feedback, but their own concept. And this tends to be very questionable because they have very interesting ideas. Anyway, we'll leave that for later. We're going to just overview our new prototype. The core aspect of our prototype is that aircraft carrier planes will have 2 different modes: travel mode and attack mode. The difference between the 2 modes are outlined below. We don't want aircraft carrier planes to spot enemy ships while traveling, only when they're attacking. Minimap spotting would solve a lot of these issues. This will reduce the majority of random spotting that aircraft carriers provide while scouting for targets to strike. Okay. Planes will be able to travel at maximum speed in this mode. While traveling, the aircraft carrier will only have the information provided by the spotting of allied ships. So, the planes become blind. The pilots lose their vision. All the planes just become, every pilot, every gunner in these bombers, they all become blind when you're using this traveling mode because they're traveling so damn fast. They literally can't see anything. Okay? Surface ships will be able to spot enemy aircraft carriers' planes during this period if in range, but their AA guns will not be able to engage them. So, they're blind and immune to AA. But defensive AA and fighter consumables can be used against planes in the traveling phase. Okay, let's do some simplification. Here's our carrier friend though. Here's Captain Carrier here at the back of the map, humping the border as he always is. Beautiful. So this man can send out. He has 2 ways of sending planes. He's got the red, which is what, the attack mode. And then he's got the green, which is the what? The travel mode. Yeah, here can send his plane. Beautiful. We have a glorious future as an artist for us. Glorious future. So this is the planes. This is the planes. Beautiful. Brum. And they're going this way. So if he's in the traveling mode, he can't see shit, but he's going extra fast. Now my question is, if there is a, let's say, a destroyer, there is what DD icon. If there is, let's say, a Holland fucking sits here. A Holland sits here. And Holland sees the planes coming, and he pops defensive AA. Let's say he's got a pretty big circle on his defensive AA, he pops defensive AA like this. Boom. And he starts shredding the planes here. He still can't see the destroyer. So the planes are being attacked by invisible AA. And wasn't one of the things they recently, well, not so recently, but a few years back, they didn't like the fact that you could shoot AA from outside of spotting range. So they changed it so when you activate AA, your plane spotting range is the same as your AA range. That was literally their solution. So in 2019, yeah, it was called Stealth Anti-Air, and they removed it in 2019, and now they're re-implementing it. So now Stealth AA is back. So the carrier flying to the target is not going to be able to see this destroyer, but if this destroyer pops defensive AA, he's going to start shredding these planes. And I hope you can at least see the flak tracers and where this is coming from, so this guy in traveling mode knows which way to turn. Because if he doesn't get any information, then he's just going to fly straight into it. And I guess he's got no option but to panic turn somewhere and hope there's not some other ship with defensive AA invisible over here. I'm not sure how this plays into like the counterplay, because like ultimately if they're gonna implement carriers in the game, there needs to be counterplay on both sides. Surface ships needs to have a viable way of interacting with CVs. CVs need to have a viable way of interacting with surface ships. Right now it's obviously completely busted because surface ships don't have any way of interacting. But this mechanic of being able to like invisible AA shoot down the planes seems very, very hard to balance. My issue is, how do you balance this? Are they going to give them some sort of AA reduction, which will make AA even more meaningless? If not, are they going to be so fast they don't take any damage? Because if they take massive damage, you know this is going to make a lot of them really, really angry. And I kind of think it's for a reason. If you're using the traveling mode and you get fucked by invisible AA, that doesn't feel like a fair interaction. It feels really stupid. But then on the other hand, okay, let's continue. Okay, planes will be able to travel at maximum speed while traveling aircraft and they can be attacked. Additionally, we're working on adding a new consumable for aircraft carriers which will work in a similar way as Hydrophone, but with limitations. The consumable will only provide brief information on enemy ship's positioning without the ability to track targets of a period of time. Okay, so there will be a way to see this, Holland, and if they pop their magical new skill, what is it called, Hydrophone. Okay, so they pop their Hydrophone here. Blop. Then they get like, we wonder what kind of circle it will be, but they'll get like this big thing, and technically they might be able to see the ship and evade it. But if it's like Hydrophone, then it's going to be like minimap spotting. So technically this is minimap spotting while traveling, but made in an extremely convoluted way. So it's going to be, if it's like Hydrophone, they literally call it like Hydrophone. That means it's going to be minimap spotting and they're going to see an outline of the ship. So this is literally like minimap spotting while traveling. This seems quite convoluted just to avoid adding minimap spotting. Okay, but we also don't know how quickly can they switch between modes. Like, is there a cooldown to switching between modes? Because can they just jump straight into attack mode, strike, and then after, let's say they go in for a strike. After their strike is done, they strike some bastard here, some poor surface NPC. Can they instantly after striking? Can they jump back into traveling mode and become immune to all AA? Is that an option? Can they like quick switch modes to become immune to AA whenever they want? Because that also seems like a huge problem. And that also seems like the current issue with submarines, where they can dolphin, where they surface and dive before the shells land. They surface dive, surface dive. Like you go out to traveling mode, you look what's around you, you see flak coming, you go into traveling mode, you become immune to AA again. Like, how is that going to be less confusing? Because if you can quickly switch between the modes, you can switch into the red mode, see everything around you, you see flak start spawning, you go back into the traveling mode, and you become immune to the AA unless they pop defensive AA. And you can even maybe bait out consumables like that, and like, I'm not sure how this is a less convoluted solution than just minimap spotting. If anything, it seems extremely convoluted. Okay, let's see. Let's see his target. Let's pretend his target is a battleship here. Oops, that's the wrong color. That's the wrong color. We want the black color. Boom. What was the battleship icon? Okay, so he wants to strike. His goal is down here. I'm kind of blocking it. I'll move this to the side. His goal is this poor BB down here. This is his goal. This guy is his goal. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Fuck, did I delete something? What do we do like this? Okay, so that's his target. Okay, so I'm already seeing a lot of questionable things regarding this, but anyway, okay. While attacking, when launching an attack, the planes will be able to spot enemy ships. Okay, so this is the attack mode. At the same time, the AA surface ships will be able to fire at the planes. Keep in mind that there is a delay in the game. There is an artificial delay added to the game where once planes enter AA range, it takes time for them to load their guns. Like, for some reason, AA guns are always unloaded. So they only start shooting once they're spotted. So if you jump out of traveling mode into attacking mode, look around you and you're like, oh, there's a lot of shit here, then you can jump back into traveling mode probably before the flak even arrives. Depends on how long the cooldown and how long it takes to go between this. In the case an aircraft carrier keeps attacking the same ship repeatedly, the ship's AA strength will get significantly stronger for a period of time. Okay, but how often do you attack the same? Okay, but let's read this to the end. Making it counterproductive for aircraft carriers to keep focusing on the same target. So the concept is here, if this guy strikes this guy repeatedly, like he goes in for a strike, flies over, comes back, goes back for a strike, the AA gets stronger and stronger. It's got an, basically, for those who play MMORPGs, he's got an enrage timer. He's got an enrage timer on his ship. But carriers rarely tend to do this. Because of the, what is it called, leapfrogging? What the hell is it called? I lost the name for it. What is it called? Basically, you have immunity windows between strikes. So what they tend to do is they go in for an attack and then they abuse that slingshot. That's what it's called. They abuse the slingshot damage immunity after the attack to fly to another target and attack that. In fact, carriers rarely tend to repeatedly drop the same target. Maybe very, very late game, this might be more useful. I can see this being more useful late game, when there's fewer ships and they're spread out, and if you keep striking the same target, then the enrage timer will work. But this raises multiple questions, namely, how long is the cooldown time? Like, is it enough to just leave the AA range? Does it instantly turn off? Because if it does, it's very easy for a carrier to just take slightly longer attack arcs in between attacks. What kind of cooldown are we dealing with here? This is going to be interesting to balance for sure, because obviously this also means that ships with longer and shorter AA ranges will become even stronger / weaker. Because if you got a huge AA radius, that means the planes spend longer time in your AA, which means your enrage timer builds up faster, which means ships that already have long range AA are gonna build up enrage quicker because the planes spend more time in the AA, which will make those exponentially stronger. Whereas, let's say, Italian ships with 4.6 km AA are gonna have the planes spend a very short time inside their AA radius, which means they will benefit less from this mechanic. So this, and then there's of course the big question mark, which is Soviet CVs. And Soviet CVs only strike once with a massive alpha strike, which has led to a number of balancing issues in the game, because there's a lot of like first squadron buffs that you get. If you're the only attacking squadron, you get a lot of buffs, and the Soviet CVs are getting all of them. And this seems like another form of that, because I'm thinking the time it takes for a strike to hit, and then the next strike being sent is enough for this enrage timer to cool down. So Soviet Civis can just keep striking the same target as they used to without suffering any of the downsides from this enrage timer. So there's a lot of question marks regarding this. Okay. We also want to provide a new counterplay mechanic for surface ships that amounts to blinding the carrier. Surface ships will be able to restrict the spotting ability of an aircraft carrier for a period of time, resulting in the inability to see and strike ships effectively that would otherwise not be spotted by allies. This mechanic will, however, not be effective against proxy spot. Proxy spot. Okay. So this is just carrier spotting. So this is a blinding. Okay, so let's say this carrier comes in. He's going in for an attack here. He curves in for an attack on this guy. He's going in for an attack, and the battleship uses pocket sand and blinds the carrier. So what this means is the carrier can no longer see. He's blind. He's no longer got vision of the battleship. However, of course, if there's any other enemy plane, well, they haven't spoken about fighter planes. So is there a way to play around this by, let's say, what if the carrier leaves a fighter plane? Because they haven't said anything about it. Let's say the carrier on the way here while traveling, he dropped the fighter plane here. And what if this fighter plane sees him? Does this pocket sand ability blind both the attacking squadron and the fighter plane? We don't know. But if it doesn't, then that's an easy way to work around this mechanic. You just leave a fighter plane before going in for the attack, and you have two forms of plane spotting on the guy, and you can strike him like that. Alternatively, of course, if there is any other ships around that can spot, if there's a cruiser or a DD or something around here, let's say like from the enemy team, then these guys can also spot the battleship, in which case this ability is worthless. So this is an extremely situational ability that only works if only the carrier is the one spotting it. It's better than nothing, but it seems very, very baffling as a mechanic that you're blinding the planes. But it's still a form of counterplay. It's just a very strange form of counterplay. Will it be added to DCP? That would not surprise me, honestly. I hope they don't. But obviously, the carrier can still go in for a blind strike here. Can go in for a blind hit, but obviously the bigger the potato, the less likely. This will add some measure of skill, I guess, to the attack here. But this will all be, of course, irrelevant if there's anyone else spotting. So this is a very situational ability. Additionally, this prototype allows us to experiment with the concept of adding another layer of depth in gameplay and control for aircraft carrier players, taking manual control of some of their guns, similar to main battery guns on surface ships when not controlling a squadron. This will be the largest caliber secondary guns available on the carrier. This should provide a new way to deal with those close-range targets. Well, this is obviously a huge buff to carriers, because this means many of them have extremely strong guns. Is it the Sekiryu has Haruguma guns? The Nakimov has Smolensk guns. So they have massive damage output on these guns. And now they will be able to manually control them to shoot down any destroyer that is trying to kill them. So considering carriers can kite away already without issues, being able to also shoot back at anyone killing them, this means they're much stronger against that. They're much stronger against that. I'm a bit sad that the request to control your secondaries is something that BB players have been asking for a long time, and Wargaming has denied them. But now they give it to carriers. It's certainly a choice. It's certainly a choice. I swear this changes just because the 07 CV hunting dips. Yeah, that actually wouldn't surprise me. And I mean, the thing is, how are they going to balance this? Because carriers actually have a tremendous amount of secondary damage output. Like, I don't think people really understand how high the damage output on these things is. The only issue is that they don't have hitting DPM. But like, if we look at damage output of secondaries, Sekiryu is here, Hakuryu is here, like more than but Schlieffen sits here. Hakuryu has more secondary DPM than Schlieffen. Like, much more than Hanover, for example. Nakimov has more than Ohio in terms of secondary damage output. The only thing that has limited this damage output to this point is the fact that they're inaccurate. But now, suddenly, you will be manually able to control them, which means, of course, the accuracy will be probably even greater than what the battleships have. So, how does a destroyer deal with that? So, if they want to implement this thing, they will also have to heavily nerf the damage output of these guns. Otherwise, it's just going to be hilariously overpowered. Hilariously overpowered. They're not so inaccurate. No, they're actually not that inaccurate. And now, and also, are they able to shoot if they switch away from manual? Do AI gunners continue shooting them? Because then they get the best of both worlds. They can shoot them manually, send a squadron. The secondaries keep shooting with AI, and then they go back to manual controlling them. And like, this is very, very convoluted so far. I'm trying to understand how this. Well, anyway, let's see the end of it. Thus, the new mechanics described above will allow us to achieve the following results. Aircraft carrier spotting capabilities will decrease. Surface ships will have new tools for active counterplay against the aircraft. Constant attacks against the same target will become less effective, and the value of AA consumables will increase. Doubtful, because if the AA consumables are only really useful in the traveling mode. I don't know about that one. On the other hand, aircraft carriers will be able to reach their targets faster and launch more attacks. Oh yeah, their damage output will go up, because they're faster in the traveling mode now. And also, if you don't have defensive AA, carriers can fly straight over your plane. That's actually something we didn't touch upon here. Is if there is a cruiser here that doesn't have defensive AA, like let's say that there's a cruiser sitting here. The cruiser sitting right here. This is a cruiser right here. There's a cruiser sitting right here. In the past, the carrier would have had to like maneuver around this guy. Like in the past, the carrier would have probably been forced to do a wider berth around this guy to go in for the strike. That would have been his options in the past. But now, if this carrier isn't running defensive AA, if it's carrier that, or this cruiser isn't running defensive AA, or if it's cruiser that can't even slot defensive AA, now the carrier can just switch to his traveling mode and fly straight over like this, ignoring all the AA he can pump out because he doesn't have defensive, and at the same time reaching his target even faster. So he's not just gaining speed, he's also gaining the distance that he needs to travel is shorter because he can fly straight to it. So the potential damage output increase on carriers is going to be pretty fucking terrifying. Minotaur, for example, is a ship that has really strong AA, but it doesn't have defensive AA. So generally speaking, carriers try to avoid ships like Minotaur. But now, if this is a Minotaur right here, the carrier can just travel mode straight over it, ignoring all the damage output of the dual-purpose guns of the Minotaur. So this is certainly very questionable. This is certainly very questionable. Okay, we'll expand the gameplay capabilities and maintain the combat effectiveness. Our main goal is to improve the interaction between surface ships and aircraft carriers as a whole. We don't want to reduce the overall damage capabilities of either side. Why not? Can you explain to me, Wargaming, why in God's name you don't want to reduce the damage capabilities of either side? Like, can you explain this? Because there's most certainly a lot of ships in this game that should get nerfed. Because they're pumping out way, way, way too much fucking damage. And I mean, and with considering they do it with complete ease as well. With zero risk. Like, obviously, the USS US is United States is obviously a key example of a hilariously overpowered carrier that should absolutely get nerfed. Like, average damage among good players in that ship is well above 200,000. Why is it the problem that this kind of damage output gets tuned down? Why is it an issue? Like, why is it an issue that this kind of damage output gets tuned down? I mean, God, the USSR also doesn't do the problem with Security, for example, that does fucking unhealable damage, which is another issue. Like, Security doesn't actually have, I think, higher damage numbers, but Security has, Security's issue is, of course, that it's citadel damage. So that's just brutal. So why is it the problem to reduce the damage capabilities of carriers? That I don't understand. Therefore, along with the introduction of new mechanics, we will be making balance changes to all surface ships and aircraft carriers in the game to preserve the core gameplay features while preventing them from being over or underperforming in battle. Due to the scale of this change, we expect to have to make additional balancing changes in the future, both for aircraft carriers and AA. Since this prototype is in active development, okay, but so they're gonna have to rebalance every single ship, every single AA gun, every single mechanic for every fucking surface ship and every single carrier. They're gonna have to rebalance, and they're gonna add this extremely convoluted model of having a hydrophone that can spot, but it's only minimap spotting, but it has longer radius than normal spotting. And then they're gonna add the different traveling modes, the flashbang system, the defensive AA that only works in one of the modes. Like, you're gonna go through all of this just to avoid adding minimap spotting, which is the one thing the community has been asking for, is Wargaming, please just do minimap spotting for carriers, which means, of course, that carriers, they can see for themselves normally, but everyone else only sees the minimap, like Cyclone, the same effect. That's what the players have been asking for a long time. And at this point, I think this is an ego issue. I think this is an ego issue for the guys at Wargaming, because they don't want to admit that the player base was right, and they sure as hell don't want to let the player base say, we told you so. So they go out of their way to make this solution instead of the minimap spotting solution. I'm almost certain this is an ego thing. This has to be an ego thing, because I don't see how anyone can look at this and go, yeah, this is a lot more intuitive and easier to understand than just carriers spot the same way as a radar does or a submarine does. How is that less intuitive than this? The only one with an ego thing is you. Okay. Elaborate. Do you think this is a clearer solution to the aircraft carrier spotting problem than using a tested mechanic that is already implemented and heavily developed in the game that could be easily added with minimal impact to the game itself and to the code itself? And is something that the players have been asking for a long time. Like, do you think that is a harder solution than this? Rebalancing every single ship, rebalancing every carrier, every surface ship, adding new traveling modes, adding new abilities, changing the way existing abilities work. You think this is an easier to implement and a more intuitive solution than doing the one thing that the player base has been asking for 4 to 5 years? Like, I don't understand the logic there. I don't actually understand how that makes any sense to me. Because you gotta understand that this code is very, very old. The big world engine is from 2003, and the code of World of Warships is incredibly convoluted and old. And adding this level of changes to an already, well, to be honest, a spaghetti code, seems like a very questionable addition. Because, thank you, Sir Mollis, for the 77 months. Because you got to consider that when the last time Wargaming tried to change anything regarding core mechanics in the game, they tried to change the way the camera works. When they tried to change the way the camera works, they implemented 5 different artillery bugs. 5 new artillery bugs. All they wanted to do was change how the camera works, like so you could adjust it yourself. That was the only thing they wanted to do. What they did was they added the railgun bug, where you could like flip your camera up like this and your shells shot off at railgun speed. They added, if you zoom in and out, your shells would go up and down depending on how zoomed in you were. So you would be hitting like islands and they would be going all over the place. They added, if you locked onto a target and zoomed in and out, your crosshair would move while you zoomed in and out because it was so tied to the camera. Like, they tried to make a small adjustment to their spaghetti code, and they completely broke the artillery. Shit, they even broke torpedoes. I don't remember if you guys remember the issue with curving torpedoes, where if your camera angle was too close to your destroyer and you launched torps, the torps went sideways because it was so tied to the camera. Like, the sheer amount of issues that they can cause by just changing a small thing is well documented. And now we're gonna have all of this instead of a tried and tested mechanic that is already in the game and could be very, very easily implemented for carriers. I struggle to see how this is more time effective, money effective. Like, how from an economical perspective, how the hell does this make more sense? Like, this is so many man hours, so much time, so much effort, so many potential issues compared to something that the community has actively asked for. So yes, I absolutely do think, without a doubt, that this is an ego issue. This is absolutely an ego issue from Wargaming, where they do not want to admit that we fucking told them so. I mean, this is not new. This is basic Russian company things. But yeah, I have an idea of how this works now. But okay, bright sides. I'm not sure if it's the player numbers dropping heavily enough that they can no longer ignore our complaints about carriers, but at least they have acknowledged that carriers are a complete shit show right now. And they clearly are, and the interaction between surface ships and carriers is a complete shit show. So they have recognized that a rework on top of their rework is needed, something that everyone else has known for years, but they finally decided to act upon. So this is the good thing. This is the good part. The positive ending here is that despite all these cum guzzlers that play carriers trying to defend this shit interaction, even Wargaming themselves have understood that their bullshit about the silent majority loving carriers is bullshit. And what the actual fucking majority says is carriers need to change, and they need to change ASAP. So that's why they're pushing this through. And the downside is that it might be because player numbers have been falling off, which is why they're finally doing something about it. That's probably the negative side of that. But the ultimate positive side is Wargaming has acknowledged CVs are a shit show and something needs to be done about them. The problem here is that I see a lot of potential issues with their implementation. This reminds me kind of submarine dolphining, surface to check to spot and torp and then go immune, surface to spot and torp then go immune. This different traveling modes kind of reminds me of all those issues that brings with it. We'll see. This hydrophone thing, I'm hoping it lets ships know when they're spotted so that they don't give these protected classes another way of spotting someone without them knowing. Because one of the main issues with the hydrophone on a submarine right now is you can spot the surface ship without the surface ship knowing you're being detected. So if when this carrier flies through and he pops his hydrophone, and let's say there's some sneaky shimakaze trying to push a flank over here, and if he gets caught by this hydrophone while he's trying to push up the 10 line, and the game doesn't let him know he's spotted, he's gonna think he's going in for like a huge flankerino. He's gonna think he's going in for the play of the year right here. But because he was spotted on a minimap, some radar cruiser or gunboat has seen him and is turning around to intercept and is about to fuck him up. So I'm hoping this isn't gonna be another form of stealth spotting, because the game really doesn't need more of that. It's already hugely problematic that submarines can do it. Adding a way for CVs to stealth spot would be a disaster. So yeah, there's a fair few issues that I'm worried about here. But the net positive here is Wargaming understands that CVs need to change. That's the net positive. They've probably known for a while, but they've tried to bullshit it. But it's glad that they've actually publicly acknowledged it, because surely that will mean that all these idiots who defend carriers will also acknowledge that they were wrong. Surely they will admit to being wrong on the internet. Surely. We can count on that. People are really good at admitting when they're wrong on the internet. So surely they will all admit that, oh, damn, CVs were actually really broken all along. Surely they will do that, because that's what people do. If I'm not mistaken, this Hydrophone should only give info to CVs. I mean, if it only gives info to CVs, that's fine. But then it also needs to let this guy know that CV has spotted it. Because otherwise the CV is going to come back with another squadron when this guy is up here. And then it gets spotted deep behind enemy lines when you think he was undetected. So regardless, spotting without letting the guy being spotted know is problematic. This was something Wargaming recognized in 2016 or 2017, when situational awareness used to be a perk that let you know that you were being detected. And Wargaming realized, man, this is so important for gameplay. Players need to know if they've been spotted. So they made it a core part of the game. And then they broke that cardinal rule about 3-4 years later when they added submarines and they added Hydrophone, where suddenly you could spot ships without ships knowing they were spotted. So hopefully they won't break that cardinal rule again, because it's already been proven it's a problematic issue. Anyway, we should move on to subs now. That guy never really justified his argument. The only guy with an ego was you, he said, and then when asked to elaborate, he just fucking disappeared. He just disappeared. I mean, that's pretty classic. You're asked to back up your argument, and you disappear.